start essentially creating some even more complex views. One of the big things we'll be capitalizing on here is this for each. So I think it's one of the most integral parts of making dynamic yet repetitive views. And I think I keep referencing the Spotify playlist page because I think that's one of the greatest examples of a really good user interface that is repetitive yet very dynamic. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So what we're actually going to do to get started, what I want you to do is I want you to go to File. I want you to create New. Now I want you to create a new file. You can also click Command N. And I don't want you to click Swift File. I want you to click Swift UI View. So we're creating a new UI view. And we'll name this one Repeatable Unit. Now, if we go to the repeatable unit, we're essentially creating a whole brand new screen. But what we want to really focus on here is that what we're essentially trying to create is something that looks roughly 50 pixels tall. So that'll be about from here to here. And something that spans the entire width of the screen. And it's going to have an image on the left. It's going to have text in the center. And it's going to have an image on the right. Okay? And that entire view, 50 pixels high and roughly the entire width of the screen, is what we'll use as our repeatable unit. You'll slowly understand more and more what that means as we keep going. But to get us there, let's go ahead and do the following. What I want you to do is you can delete the text that says hello world. I want you to start by creating an H stack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you here. Well, first we'll add a text inside and we'll just have it say anything really, just to make sure that we can keep going. And what I want you to do is I want you to give it a red background color. So the way we're going to do that is we can essentially work on the attributes of, well, we could work on the attributes of HStack alone. We can work on the attributes of text, whatever we'd like. So maybe the best thing to do is go to text, and for the text view that you just created, I want you to put a period, write background, and we want that background, we'll make it red. As you can see, the view updated in real time, and now we have a red background. Now for the H stack, what I want you to do is I want you to give that another background color, and that background color is going to be blue. And you're probably wondering why there is absolutely no difference. And the reason that there is no difference is because the two are actually the exact same width right now. So to avoid that problem, what we're going to do is we're going to put a spacer within the H stack. And that is going to push hello all the way to the left, and it's going to extend the actual width of the H stack entirely to the right. So that spacer is taking up all the area from here on the right hand border to all the way to the trailing border of hello. So I said trailing because the right hand side of everything is called the trailing side and the left hand side is the leading. The top is the top and the bottom is the bottom. So as you can see, our text has a background of red and our H stack has a background of blue. So if you remember what we were saying, our goal is actually going to be that we're going to put an image here, text in the center, and an image on the right. So let's try to make this as aesthetic as possible as we go along. So the first thing we need to do is add an image. So let's go ahead and add that image. We're going to call it system name. You can just copy and paste, or try to write this verbatim for now. We'll talk about the different types of images later. But for now, what we're going to try to do is create an image using the default images that are provided from SwiftUI. And we're going to use the image system name heart.fill. Okay? And what I want you to do is I want to put a spacer between image and text. So now we have a spacer here, and we have a spacer here. And that's kind of giving us our view for now. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create our image on the opposite side. And to make sure we can differentiate between the two sides, we'll put a heart fill on the left and a regular heart on the right. So that is a hollow heart. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to align this over here to the left. So what I can do is I can actually get rid of this spacer. That'll push it to the left. And usually you don't see text views or images going all the way and hugging the border on either the left or the right hand side of the screen. So what we'll do is we'll actually use something called padding. So just like we added the background color by writing dot background, we're going to do a similar thing here and say dot padding. And order is important here. So when you write dot padding just as it is, it automatically assumes that you want an inset of roughly 20 pixels. So that looks pretty good to us. I'd say that's fairly aesthetic as it is, as it comes out of the box. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this red, and I'm going to make it clear. Or you could just get rid of that all in all entirely. You can just go like that. But I like to keep them around in case I want to change them. They're easy to change later. And I'm going to go ahead and change this blue one to black. You're welcome to match me, or you're welcome to write what you'd like. Before I change it to black, though, it might be nice if we go ahead and change the color of the text here to white. So text color now is called foreground color. So the foreground color refers to the text. So one of the beauties of SF symbols over regular images or regular icons is that they actually respond as text. So I can change the color of that SF symbol by writing foreground color. The same way I can do the same thing for this text, or I can do for the next image. But to be even more efficient, I would actually like to do it for everything inside of this H stack. So if I write foreground color is white, then it assumes that for anything inside of this H stack, everything inside there will be a foreground color of white. The only exception to that, however, will be if you specifically specify that a specific item inside there has its own different foreground color. So for example, if I give heart fill its own foreground color of dot green, then it will be green. But everything that does not have its own specified color will remain dot white, because that is what the parent is set to. So we'll go ahead and leave it like that for now. I'll change the background here from blue to black. Alright, slowly looking a bit more like something you might find in Spotify. Of course, things look a little bit different over there. But maybe one more thing we'll do to get us closer is we'll make this say ellipsis. Now that's definitely something you might find on Spotify. So right here we have the repeatable unit that we'll go ahead and use. We need to make sure we have this name verbatim, and capitalization is extremely important here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it, and we'll use it shortly. Now everything we were building previously was on content view. So I'm going to go back over to content view, and if you remember, what we previously did was we created a grocery list, and we used the grocery list to create all these items. Well, another thing I can do is I can actually just say, well, for every item in there, maybe I want to tell it, go ahead and create an image. System name. Let's say we did heart. So we get 4 hearts because there's 4 items. But another option we actually have is we can actually add the repeatable unit that we had previously created. So just as I was able to create texts with text in it, or I was able to create that image, I'm just hitting Command Z and getting us back to the image, I can actually go ahead and also use this new item I created called the repeatable unit. So I sat here and designed this repeatable unit, and if I go over here to content view, I actually get to see its implementation. So here I am with the repeatable unit. And we can actually probably make them even closer together if we are to spacing. We can set the spacing, go ahead and just write spacing 0. And now they're all side by side by side. So there is a default spacing. I'm not sure quite what it is. But when I set it to 0, it gets rid of that spacing in between them. And sure enough, this is starting to look like something you might find on Spotify. So what we did is we actually used the number of items in this array just to create a certain set number of repeatable units. Now, we can actually take it one step further, and this will be the last thing we do in this video. But we can make repeatable unit require us to enter what that text will say. So if you remember, our repeatable unit in its most basic form just says hello. But what we can do instead is, what we want to do is we can say middle text is equal to default. And what I like about default values is that I can actually set this default value. We need to make sure it's actually, right here. I can put this default value, instead of the word hello, I can write the text as a default internal content of this value, middle text, which will always say default. Now what's really interesting is instead, now when I go to content view, I can say, if I just say repeatable unit, then it'll automatically have every single one of these say default. But I can actually initialize that with a custom middle text, and I can make it be every item within groceries as it runs through it inside of this loop right here. So let's go ahead and try again. It's going to ask us to make it to write self. Now you can see we have 4 items, or 4 repeatable units, and the text internally says whatever the indicator or whatever the value is for each of these indices inside the groceries array. Alright, so that wraps up this lesson. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them below. Alright, thanks.